You're just as low down and grimy as your old man. Ghost was right. You lied to me. You stole from me. I can't trust you.
You see this bullshit right here? This shit exactly like him. Just like Ghost.
Loyal only to your own cause. Sound exactly like Ghost.
Now, can Tommy trust Tariq St. Patrick in Power Legacy? That's the topic of this particular breakdown, where we'll be taking a look at the history between two of the biggest OGs left in power, why I feel there could be a few scenarios of conflict, betrayal, beef, and maybe even Tariq being involved in Tommy's death. But I do think context is important. So this is a topic that I actually raised early in March over on X, where I mentioned the following. You know what's mad? Tariq was responsible for two of the biggest deaths we've seen in power, setting up Kanan and killing Ghost. What are the odds that he goes for the holy trifecta at some point in Power Legacy? At some point I do expect him to butt heads with Tommy in a big way, just like Tommy and Ghost did. I personally don't believe they can be in partnership together, at least not in the long term, and that stems from Tariq being just as grimy as Ghost. And there are definitely a lot of examples which we will go through later on in this breakdown. But one of the examples that I referenced in that particular post was how Tariq sent the Italians in Tommy's direction right at the end of Power. So could Tariq end up being the ultimate villain and the most hated character once again in the Power universe, where he causes Tommy's death, either directly or indirectly? I then followed it up with another post where I mentioned, judging by the response and the sentiment from those who replied, I don't think some people are really ready to have this conversation. But that's also precisely why you should be paying attention, and consider that this could be a real possibility. The cyclical nature of power should not be ignored. History doesn't repeat, but it sure does rhyme, especially when it comes to power. An example of that is the theme of manipulation and control that we've seen in Raising Kanan, and how we saw history repeat many years later. Again, Tariq and Tasha setting up Kanan, just like Ghost and Tasha did back in the day. And that's what I mean when I mention cyclical nature of power and how history often rhymes. So that's the topic of this particular breakdown. Can Tommy trust Tariq, and could he potentially cause Tommy's demise in Power Legacy? Now, before we get into the why and how Tariq could be the one involved in Tommy's death in some shape or form, we do have to rewind time, take a look at the history and how these two ended up in business together. We know they have a rocky relationship to say the least. That's because of everything that transpired from Power through to Power Book 2 Ghost. But in the early years of Power, there definitely was a lot of love. Uncle Tommy was literally that for Tariq in Power, an uncle. He watched him grow up, he was there as Raina, Yasmin and Tariq were born. The death of Raina also hit Tommy just as hard. He would have held Yasmin, Raina, as well as Tariq in his arms as they were babies. He protected him in Power, gave him advice, he was there for him as Ghost wasn't, especially when he was in jail in Season 4. He tried to keep him on the straight and narrow, especially when he realized he was dealing drugs. Very similar to how he was with D-Mac, he also tried to keep him away from the streets. There was conflict, and a lot of what we saw later on in Power is honestly why I think history could rhyme, because of who Tariq is and what we've seen before, and also what he's capable of. Tariq stole product from Tommy, he overheard the hit on Dre and warned him for his own selfish gain. He helped an enemy of Tommy and Ghost because he once helped Tariq. He lied countless of times, especially when he was hanging around Kanan, aka Slim. He also sent the Italians in Tommy's direction towards the end of Power as well, knowing what outcome that could have potentially had. But everything changed more so after Ghost's death. Tariq killed Ghost, and that's something till this very day Tommy hasn't forgotten, and neither can he forgive. So you fast forward it to Power Book 2 Ghost. Tariq was out here in New York trying to build his own empire and basically just survive in the early seasons of Book 2 Ghost. But to survive and save Tasha, she had to name him in court. So I guess you could also add that to the list of things that have happened between the two as well, especially because we know how Tommy feels around snitches. And you could tell from their interactions in Power Book 2 Ghost seasons 1 and 3, there was definitely a lot of tension.
Trying to pin Ghost murder on me, when we both know who did that.
Listen, Uncle Tommy, she's all I got, eh?
Don't call me Uncle Tommy. We stopped being family when you offed your old man.
In Season 1, everything was still fresh and raw around the death of Ghost, and in Season 3, Tommy even made reference to Tariq killing Ghost, how he was probably capable of doing the same thing to Tommy.
You think you finally gonna kill me, huh? Well, you killed your father, so pulling the trigger on me ain't gonna be nothing to you.
And honestly, it is true. If Tariq can pull the trigger on his own father, he really is capable of anything. Now, eventually Tommy and Tasha did hatch things out, but you could still feel their relationship wasn't quite back to normal or how it used to be. You could even see it and feel the tension on the rooftop at the end of Power Book 4 Force.
Everything that happened between us.
We family. The fuck we do?
Ghost was my family too.
There definitely are a few conversations that need to be had between the two, and I do think we'll get some very spicy conversations in Power Legacy around the history and what transpired throughout Power and Power Book 2 Ghost. But despite everything that they've been through, they are still family. They hashed things out towards the end of Ghost Season 3, and when Tommy needed help towards the end of Force, which in my particular opinion did kind of feel forced, to be honest. I think it looked out of place with Tariq coming to save Tommy. I can 100% understand people questioning it before it even happened. Why people were saying, why would Tommy call Tariq? It just doesn't make sense. But I definitely get why they did what they did. They had to set up Power Legacy, even though I feel Tariq felt and looked out of place in Chicago. Now, even though Tariq did show up for Tommy in Force, even though Tommy was the one who called Tariq, it should and normally would be the other way around. Tariq is that type of person who would only call when it benefits himself. And that's the problem for Tommy. One of his biggest weaknesses is family and loyalty. That's one of his biggest kryptonites, which I'm going to come to a bit of a quote from Joseph Sikora in just a moment. But that one-sided love is exactly why their new partnership in Power Legacy kind of feels doomed from the jump, because I honestly don't think Tariq can be trusted, and he's also exactly like Ghost, and that's the problem.
This shit exactly like him. Just like Ghost.
Now, throughout Power, we know how Tommy and Ghost clashed from the jump. They always used to be some sort of conflict because Ghost liked to do things in a certain way, and often Ghost used to make a lot of maneuvers and chess moves without Tommy knowing. For example, at the end of Season 2, Ghost hatched a plan where he'd have Felipe Lobos arrested, but to do that, he had to serve up Tommy, even though he did have a plan to save him. That's just what Ghost does. It did work in the end. They got the case thrown out against Tommy, with the picture that Angela got from a underage Isabella Ruiz. And Ghost also made a point how Angela could have Felipe Lobos, but she couldn't have Tommy. But the point remains, the move was made without Tommy in the know. To get Felipe Lobos, Tommy had to be put in handcuffs in the process, and that's just one example from Power. We can also take a look at another where we can take it back to their childhood. The first time or the first story that we heard, which Ghost made behind Tommy's back, was sending Kanan to prison. And just talking about Power Origins for a moment, I would not be surprised one bit if we see even more. Ghost making all these moves behind Tommy's back, keeping things from him when it came to this move or that move in the streets, because it certainly would mirror the character that we saw on Power. And then it would kind of build up to the big move of leaving Tommy out the plan, which Ghost and Tasha then hatched to send Kanan away. But in Power, Ghost would make a lot of moves behind Tommy's back, and Tariq was the same. He did the exact same thing when it came to Brayden in Power Book 2 Ghost.
You're ungrateful for everything I do. The app wouldn't be shit without me, and you don't even give me that fucking respect. This is about you treating me like we're not fucking boys. You're always hiding shit from me and disappearing.
He often lied, made moves and deals which left Brayden out, which he said was in order to protect him, which may be true. I do agree with that to a certain extent. You could see why Ghost would leave Tommy out of certain plans because he wouldn't often agree with Ghost's plans. For example, when he was trying to plot against Milan, Tommy could easily be influenced by those around him, whereas Ghost would question things. But same thing with Brayden when it came to Kane. Remember what happened back in Power Book 2 Ghost Season 2? Brayden was heavily influenced by Kane, which backfired on Tariq. So all in all, Tariq was the same in Power Book 2 Ghost, just with Brayden instead. But if Tommy is your brother, your partner in crime, if Brayden is your brother and partner in crime in Power Book 2 Ghost, you have to trust them. You can't leave them out of crucial plans or chess moves and make moves behind each other's backs, because then it leads to shit like this. Distrust, conflict, problems, and when those cracks start to appear early doors, the relationship and business partnership is basically going to be a ticking time bomb. Just how we saw the relationship between Tommy and Diamond in Power Book 4 Force, it really was a ticking time bomb from the jump. And that's the problem I see in Power Legacy between these two characters. That's the problem I see with a character like Tariq. He's selfish like Ghost was in the later seasons of Power. He does have a tendency to make moves without keeping you in the loop, just like we saw in Power Book 2 Ghost, because Tariq is a character who has shown at times he is only loyal to his own cause, just like Ghost.
Loyal only to your own cause. Sound exactly like Ghost.
Throughout Power, there were many moments where Tommy told Tariq directly to his face, he's as grimy as his old man, he sounds exactly like Ghost, loyal to your own cause. Even when he returned in Book 2 Ghost, at the graveyard, Tommy said he knew he'd pull something like this, and this shit that he saw around him, this shit was exactly like Ghost. Just like Dre pulled up behind Tommy with a gun at the end of Season 2, Tariq had Monet pull up behind Tommy with a gun, father like son. And Tommy knows exactly who Tariq is. He's seen this shit from Ghost in Power, and he's now seen this shit from Tariq. But often when it comes to family, love, and loyalty, those are Tommy's biggest weaknesses, despite everything that they've been through, despite knowing who Tariq is and what he's done before, which could actually end up being his downfall. Because when there's power involved, when there's money involved, when you're looking to be the biggest drug dealer in New York, people change, money changes people, power also changes people, and I can guarantee Tariq will also change. Which now brings me over to the story of Power Legacy and the offer that Tariq made to Tommy at the end of Power Book 4 Force.
There's just more money to be made for you, me, and your family if we partnered up. Build your kingdom. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking legacy, Uncle T.
Right at the end, in Chicago, Tariq made Tommy an offer to continue building his empire, come back to New York with him and stamp his authority back in his hometown. Tariq called it building his legacy, and it could potentially work. We can't sit here and say it won't. It could work, but we know Power, and Joseph Sikora has also echoed the same. I think it could be so much fun to see something with Tommy and Tariq. There's so much disaster, destruction, and expansion that could happen with the relationship between the two. He also mentioned he could serve as his kryptonite, because even though he previously said, "You're not family anymore," Tommy's kryptonite is his family. Now this goes back to my point of how one of Tommy's biggest problems is being there for his family, showing loyalty to some who don't actually deserve it. And we can make a very good argument where Tariq doesn't deserve Tommy's loyalty. But that's one of Tommy's biggest problems, which is something I could eventually see backfire, which even Joseph Sikora's acknowledged. He said it himself, there's a lot of destruction and disaster that could come by partnering up with Tariq because of who he is, because of what's happened in the past between the two, and because of what Tariq is capable of. Which, in my opinion, also hints at the same cycle that could play out when Tariq and Tommy go into partnership.
And I deserve what I get.
What you mean you deserve what you get?
I hurt everyone that cares about me.
Whoever gets involved with Tariq ends up dead or gone. And this does tie back to my original post. Tariq already has 2 major bodies to his name. There are definitely a lot more, and we've seen them in Tariq's nightmare. But in Power, 2 of the biggest are Ghost and Kanan. And when their relationship starts to show signs of cracks, which isn't a matter of if, it definitely is just a matter of when their relationship starts showing signs of cracks, when their relationship starts turning sour, when Tariq starts behaving like Ghost, when they disagree on how to do things, which they definitely will, you can guarantee that's a problem that they will face within their business partnership, where they disagree, where Tariq starts making moves behind Tommy's back, or where he starts making moves which Tommy disagrees with or has told him, don't make that particular move. You can see Tariq making a lot of calls and decisions without checking in with Tommy, just like Tommy did with Diamond, just like Ghost did with Tommy back in Power. It definitely is going to lead to major conflict between the two, which at some point could lead to Tariq potentially betraying Tommy in this chase for power and ambition, because we know what power does to some people, where Tariq goes on that stance of family first until family becomes competition. And I'll go back to the point I made right at the beginning. Tariq had a hand in killing Ghost and also killing Kanan. He sent the Italians in Tommy's direction right at the end of Power. Can we honestly sit here for sure 100% and say he ain't gonna do it again? With everything that we've seen, knowing who he is and what he's done, of course until Legacy drops it's all speculation, but the clues are definitely all there. The history is there, we also know how calculated and strategic Ghost was, but even he couldn't see it coming from Tariq. Kanan never saw it coming, and I really do believe when Tommy goes, or if he does go at the end, he may potentially never see it coming from Tariq, or him potentially maybe being involved. So he may personally not do it himself, but can I see him potentially having a hand in it with the Italians maybe? Potentially, yeah. I honestly don't think we can rule it out, and Tariq may just end up being the villain that we all love to hate once again. But that's how and why I think their business partnership and relationships will show signs of conflict and problems that we saw between Ghost and Tommy in Power. It's because Tariq is cut from the same cloth, father like son, which I do think Tommy knows. I guess one of the big differences between Ghost and Tariq is that Tariq has fully embraced the game, whereas Ghost wanted out. But family and loyalty is one of Tommy's biggest problems. It's one of his biggest kryptonites. So could Tariq be a problem again? We know we'll see conflict and problems between the two. We know Tariq will go behind Tommy's back multiple times in Power Legacy. I do think that's a given. But could Tariq go one step further and go for the holy trifecta, or be involved in some shape or form? After all, he's already killed Ghost and had a hand in killing Kanan, 2 of the biggest players in Power. Who's to say he doesn't go 3 for 3, embracing that ultimate villain role in Power, where his story goes full circle, where he goes back to being the most hated character in Power once again? Let me know what you think down below in the comment section, drop your thoughts below, and as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.